We must not lose track of the individual suffering endured by so many in Nanjing. So now, let us focus on the accounts of Nanjing's Chinese residents, starting with Yi Kulan, who was just 14 during the massacre. To quote, "I remember that there was a pond in front of the small building where we lived. The Japanese killed people along the bank and pushed them into the pond. The pond was full of dead bodies, and the water was totally the red color of blood. I saw a Japanese devil forcing a young man about 20 years old to the side of the pond, stabbing him to death with a bayonet and then pushing him into the pond." End quote. Next, we have the extensive testimony of Xia Shuqin, who was just 8 years old during the massacre. "On the morning of December the 13th, 1937, a group of Japanese soldiers, about 30 people, came to knock on our door. They shot the owner of the house immediately when he opened the door. Seeing this, my father kneeled down in front of them, begging them not to kill any more people, but he was shot dead by them as well. My mother was scared and hid under the table with my 1-year-old sister, but she was dragged out by the Japanese soldiers. They grabbed my sister away from my mother, throwing her fiercely to the ground. Then they tore my mother's clothes, and several soldiers gang-raped her before killing her with a bayonet. They then cruelly struck a bottle into my mother's private part. Later, several Japanese soldiers forced into the neighborhood room where my grandfather, grandmother, and 2 elder sisters were hiding. They tried to rape my older sisters, but were strongly resisted by my grandfather and grandmother, so they killed the 2 old people brutally. Then the Japanese soldiers tore away all the clothes of my 2 elder sisters. They gang-raped them before killing them with a bayonet. The soldiers stuck my grandmother's walking stick into my eldest sister's private part. I was hiding in the quilt on the bed. I cried aloud out of fear that I was stabbed in the back by the Japanese soldiers 3 times, so I fainted. I didn't know how long had passed, but I was awoken by the cry of my 4-year-old younger sister and found we were surrounded by the bodies of my family. We could do nothing but cry loudly, wishing to wake up my mother. The Japanese also spared no quarter for the infirm, as demonstrated by the testimony of Zhu Shisheng, who was 22 during the ordeal. One afternoon, the Japanese soldiers came in to arrest people. I pretended to be ill and laid on the ground, covered with a quilt. They took me and 2 other men to the river, and when we got to the river, the other 2 were hacked to death by the Japanese soldiers. Then a Japanese soldier wanted to kill me. I begged them. I used gestures for fear they would not understand me. As I was speaking, 3 more Japanese soldiers came, and before I could see them clearly, one of them hacked me on the back of the neck. I fell to the ground. I still had some consciousness at that time, and because I was wearing a torn overcoat, I bit my collar, holding my breath to pretend to be dead. After a few minutes, the Japanese soldiers kicked me with their feet, but I didn't move. They then said something like, "dead," the quote ends. But of all the groups the Japanese subjected to horrendous violence, a special hatred seems to have been reserved for prisoners of war, as demonstrated by the testimony of Li Gaoshan, then a 13-year-old boy who had just recently signed up with the Chinese army. "We were disarmed by the Japanese. Our arms were all tied behind our back, and they drove us away. We stood side by side in a room, amounting to hundreds of people. At about 8 or 9 o'clock, the Japanese soldiers suddenly shot at the crowd from the window, killing most of the captives on the spot. I was covered with blood on my body and face, but I was not hurt. A dozen people and I ran up the stairs to the 2nd floor. Some people broke their legs and couldn't run. Then they were killed by the Japanese troops on the spot. Only 6 of us escaped. Later we were discovered by a Japanese soldier. All the other 5 were killed on the spot, but they left me alive. They touched my head, made fun of me, and took me to the Japanese army to work as a coolie."